Welcome to the semifinals here at GP Seattle. My name's TJ Rogers, joined by Paul Cheon, and we are getting a look at these players as they are preparing. Jerry Thompson on the right with that black-red aggro deck. On the left, Grayson Roberts, the blue-red God Pharaoh's gift deck. Picked up this deck on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, too, because this doesn't look like the most intuitive deck to play, right? This is got a lot of crazy things going on, and to be able to kind of identify all the cool interactions to kind of put yourself into the top four of a Grand Prix, very, very impressive.
Absolutely. Heading into turn 3 for Jerry, he did start his turn 2 with that Walking Ballista. It was followed up by that Warkite Marauder on the left side of the battlefield, so Jerry has a couple of options in if he wants to handle this card now, maybe deal with it later. Interesting little fun fact is that it would actually turn the Walking Ballista into a 1-2.
Right. And Jerry just choosing to attack here, and actually interesting that Grayson chose not to block here because now you're giving Jerry kind of the choice of whether or not you want to use that Ballista. So he might have taken a point of damage there where he didn't necessarily need to. Because I imagine if I'm on Jerry's side, it's like, oh, now he gave me the choice.
He's able to follow it up with that Aethersphere Harvester. It's a 3/5 in the air. That's also going to be able to apply some pressure just over the top.
Yeah, so Jerry did use that Ballista to get that Marauder off the board, so he did get in for basically a free 1 point of damage.
And it's a Champion of the Wits coming down for Grayson. We're going to draw 2 cards. We're going to discard 2 cards. Lot of power in a card like this. You're able to dig through your deck, and especially something like this where your graveyard is just another resource.
Right, and taking a look at just kind of the way Jerry and his team kind of came into this tournament was, you look at a lot of like the mono red decks, 4 copies of Lightning Strike, right? You want to burn your opponent out. Jerry's actually decided to go with the 4 copies of a Braid, which means he has a much better game for this matchup game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to note, of course, is that, as Jerry said previously, this is the first time that he's done well with a red deck. Apparently, turning things sideways.
That just seems so hard to believe because he just wins with everything.
Not the red decks, apparently.
Well,
maybe he hasn't sleeved them up before.
Right. But he has had success with aggressive decks, given that he won a Pro Tour piloting zombies.
Those zombies were pretty aggressive. So it's Gate to the Afterlife here from Grayson joining the Champion of Wits. Taking a look at those cards in graveyard, it is going to be relevant. Needs to hit 6. That's the magic number. We're at 3 so far.
Yeah, and Jerry had no cards in hand, so it looks like he probably at least mulliganed the 6 here.
Crewing up the Aethersphere Harvester, getting some aggression in. Has 2 copies of it, only 1 creature to crew.
Right, so did not draw a creature for the turn to get that second Harvester online, which is huge. This does buy Grayson Roberts some additional time. Grayson is still a few creatures away from triggering that Gate to the Afterlife, but as we mentioned before, a card like Walking Ballista or Fanatical Firebrand allows you to shoot down your own creature, and with that Gate to the Afterlife on the battlefield, you get a couple extra loots as well, and so it makes it just super likely for you to actually be able to fetch that God Pharaoh's gift.
Yeah, interesting to see 1 card held in hand there for Jerry, because having 4 mana means that he's got access to about the majority of his deck beyond the singular
Grayson Roberts going for the activate Ipnu Rivulet?
Yeah.
Targeting himself. Did he find enough creatures to actually use the Gate to the Afterlife?
2. I think we're up to 5 cards in that graveyard. The last one was
very
an artifact,
close.
A Trinket or a Treasure Mage, as well as a Fanatical Firebrand hidden in that graveyard.
Oh, yeah. What is that bottom card? Is that another Gate to the Afterlife?
That
it's an artifact, I think.
Is that Gate to the Afterlife?
Okay, so he was 1 short.
So it's a small attack in, but Jerry at a pretty high life total at this point. It's just a matter of that card's not going to be blocking.
Yeah, interesting that Grayson went for the attack. I guess the reason why he decided to go for the attack here is that he thinks Jerry can just play a creature and crew both the Harvesters. But if Jerry drew something like a Pianilar, that Inventor's Apprentice could also attack this turn, meaning that he could have been at a slightly higher life total because Grayson's not going to win because he got in with that Champion of Wits this turn. The way he wins is by coming back and kind of filling up his board.
Yeah, we've seen that come down. We've even seen multiple of these God Pharaoh's Gift come together. This deck can just explode onto the battlefield.
Right. Grayson just really needs a way to find that 6th creature and put it into his graveyard.
We've seen him
to
do it
get the God
before.
Pharaoh's Gift going.
A Walking Ballista would do it.
Yeah, Walking Ballista, Fanatical Firebrand. Can't even block those Aethersphere Harvesters doing work. Or Aethersphere Harvester.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even need 2 of them.
Even something along the realms of like Champion of Wits would be fine, because he could even eventually find that, he's got 5 mana right now. 3 mana for the Champion of Wits, 2 mana for the activation of this Gate to the Afterlife.
Yeah. Oh, and it looks like Grayson is taking a look at the Vizier of Many Phases, which does have an Eternalized cost here. And he's going to do it and use it to copy the Champion of Wits.
So it's going to enter as a copy of the card, but it is no longer in the graveyard. So you go down a count, but hopefully in that draw 2 and that lose 2, you're able to also potentially find some more answers.
Oh, sorry, Embalm, not Eternalize.
Not a 4/4. It's just going
Right.
to remain the copying
Right.
that power and toughness,
Yeah,
being a
but
2/2.
Grayson now. Oh, and he did find 2 creatures to discard. So despite the fact that he embalmed and got rid of a creature in his graveyard, he now does have 6.
And I
So he
think
just needs to survive.
that was a Combat Celebrant too, and we have seen what that card can do when it's a 4/4 and when it's got haste.
Yeah, and Jerry is currently drew 2 more lands. It's, Grayson had a bit of Jerry did not have the best start here. It looks like he mulliganed, and he hasn't been able to find that additional creature for the Aethersphere Harvester, but this might be the turn where Grayson turns the corner here. He can use that Gate to the Afterlife.
Keep in mind that he is at 28. That's a good way to buy some time, and Jerry's got a couple of options for getting that final 5 points of damage in.
Right.
He did.
Yeah, and taking a look, just the blue-red deck, unlike the blue-white God Pharaoh's Gift deck, less life gain, right? So you can't just get an Angel of Invention on the battlefield and then just come back. If Jerry maybe strings together, for example, a couple of unlicensed disintegrations or a Chandra plus a disintegration, that might be enough for that gives Jerry a few more outs than he would if you were playing against the blue-white deck.
Yeah, even 2 power potential through Walking Ballista,
Right.
for instance. So it is going to be the God Pharaoh's Gift coming to the battlefield. We saw the Gate to the Afterlife activate, and as we head into this combat, it is going to be an opportunity. No Scavenging Grounds for Jerry, not able to stop this. It's going to be the Combat Celebrant. No blockers available. This is an open battlefield, and Grayson's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, so it looks like he's attacking with everything, as the Combat Celebrant does allow you to get an additional attack step. So he's cracking in for 8 here. Then he gets an additional combat step where he gets to use that God Pharaoh's Gift for another creature.
Another Combat Celebrant specifically. It's another crack for 8.
Wow.
And then we're going to do it again.
Is that lethal?
So the first one put him down to 20. The next one would put him down to 12. This untaps the previous Combat Celebrant.
So then now he gets attacked. So does that mean the 2 of them? Okay, so now he's going to get another creature here. So Jerry's currently at 12, and he hasn't attacked yet. And this is lethal, right? This is 12 damage.
This is it. That should be enough.
Wow.
Game 1, Grayson. Look at that turnaround time, though.
So I just want to openly state that I was wrong. Apparently that 2 points of damage was relevant. Grayson ran the numbers, and it was exactly 26 points of damage that he needed on that turn.
3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why he's here, and I'm here.
Well, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. So it's going to be game 2 coming up between these two. Jerry trying to piece together a win. He's got to win 2 in a row now.
Yeah.
So taking a look at the sideboards, we've seen it before. Is he going to be trying to be aggressive against this deck, would you assume? Or is that sort of grinding game plan that is a lot more resilient the direction that you might view him going?
Well, it seems like it's kind of hard to actually kind of attack through on the ground because Grayson's deck does have just a lot of like annoying creatures like the Fanatical Firebrand and the Walking Ballista. I mean, Jerry already has the 4 copies of Abrade in the main deck, and I think being on the play, you want to lean towards being a little more aggressive and potentially sideboard into a slightly slower deck after once you're back on the draw. But I think on the play, you still want to be aggressive, put a lot of pressure, and kind of put Grayson to the test. You need to do everything you can to get that God Pharaoh's Gift on the battlefield, and if Jerry's just holding up that Abrade or Unlicensed Disintegration, that's likely going to be enough in a lot of situations. So I don't think Jerry really needs to do a whole lot here, especially given the fact that he's going to be going first.
Okay, and taking a look at Grayson's deck, of course, we've seen this one throughout the weekend. A lot of it is going to be probably protecting what it's been trying to put together. 2 copies of Padim. Anything else that's really standing out to you?
Yeah, so Padim is fantastic in this matchup because we just talked about how Abrade is the most important card for Jerry to interact with this deck, and Padim makes your artifacts have hexproof. So Jerry needs to have a way to kill Padim. But guess what? Abrade doesn't deal 4 damage. So Jerry needs to drop both an Unlicensed Disintegration or 2 burn spells to get the Padim off the board before he can even Abrade the before he can even abrade the Godfarer's Gift. So I imagine Padim is something he wants to bring in. Also, being on the draw, he might want to slow his deck down a little bit. So I could also see him bring in, for example, the Sweltering Suns, and potentially even the Abrade if he wants to just kind of survive to the late game. Cards like Vizier of Many Faces, for example, is not all that strong here. It's just a little bit slow.
I mean, we saw it act as a 5-mana champion of wits
in
this matchup.
It was enough that game, but, just because you win with a card doesn't necessarily mean that's the card that should stay in your deck post-board.
Took me a long time to learn that lesson when I was getting into the game.
It's like, oh, well, I won with this 8-mana card. I better keep it in against the mono-red deck because how else am I going to win?
My fascination with Tybalt has not ended since.
Fair enough.
So getting into game 2 here, looks like these players are still taking a look at the sideboard, keeping some of these decisions. Jerry might be going through a lot of that same mentality of how does he want to approach this matchup.
Yeah. There's a lot of different angles. Maybe Jerry wants to actually somehow make his deck faster. Although it looks like, judging by his sideboard, a lot of them are kind of slower options. There are cards like Doomfall too, which is better on the play because being on the play and playing a turn 3 Doomfall is much stronger when you're trying to interact with cards like the Gate to the Afterlife, for example. When you're on the draw, your opponent can just slam it, and you don't have the opportunity to play your hand disruption spell. But on the play, I could see him maybe look to consider something like that. Absolutely.
And these players, of course, if they do come away with the match win in this one, they're going to end up going against the champion of Jeremy Frye's and Gamyen's match.
Yes.
One of these players potentially making history this weekend.
Yeah. Gamyen currently, again, sitting at 16-0, has the potential to win it all and make history and go 18-0.
Incredible.
Right.
Just, my goodness, that is something.
With just the old standby. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mono red, just getting it done.
If it got you the buy, just see if it can get you the trophy.
Right. Yeah.
Run it back. So
that's just the way to go, right? If you just win a PTQ with a deck, just run it at the PT. Why not?
That's good. Yeah, that's really the realm I'd be at.
Yeah.
Perfect. So other things that we might see, we talked a little bit about some of the interactions between this Warkite Marauder and the Fanatical Firebrand, their abilities to interact with some of these cards like the Hazaret, to interact with some of these cards like the Rekindling Phoenix. Is there anything in Jerry's? We talked a lot about the card of Braid, but there's a couple of our cards that he might have access to that really could play a factor in this one. One of them is that he does have a singular copy of that Scavenger Grounds. That might be able to help out so much. Is there anything else that really, the key to the game for Jerry, a card that that might be able to just gain him a couple of points? Maybe you talked about that Doomfall taking the Gate to the Afterlife.
Yeah, so I think, if you look, Jerry was still kind of figuring out exactly what he wants his configuration to be after sideboard. It's rough because this is kind of a relatively newer deck too. So sometimes people don't one of the advantages of playing kind of decks that are less established is it's really hard to sideboard against. You don't exactly know how the games play out post-board, so you just kind of feel like, well, this is probably good, but you don't know for sure. So it's really difficult. But yes, as you mentioned, the Scavenger Grounds is one of the more important cards in the matchup. Very, very powerful against Gate to the Afterlife. And if this blue-red deck is kind of the real deal, which it's proving to be right now, I fully expect to see a lot more Graveyard Hate making its way into a lot of these standard decks.
I mean, 3 copies in the top 8. That is the deck of the weekend,
right? From
a standard perspective. It's just dominated the show.
Yeah, I could also see Jerry bringing in the second Glory Bringer that he has in the sideboard. Just an excellent card in these kind of, it's a slightly more mid-range matchup, right? Glory Bringer allows you to kind of deal with those eternalized creatures, get that off the board. And also, I mean, Grayson, at the end of the day, when you're playing Get to the Afterlife, you're still playing a creature deck, so it just kind of can clear the way.
It also offers another one of those answers to Padim, to where you could chain that Glorybringer and maybe an Abrade as a potential way to answer that.
Both Padim and, both Glorybringer and Chandra being kind of two of the better answers, along with, of course, the Disintegration. So Jerry, unlike most red decks, Jerry does have a couple more options because he does have that unlicensed Disintegration.
And we're going to see another mulligan here from Jerry, so he's going to be taking a look at 6. Grayson seems to be happy with the 7.
Yeah.
If it ain't broke.
That's right. But Jerry just looking to just try to curve out, get that aggressive start here, and ideally with an Abrade in his opener too.
Yeah, those mulligans can be pretty punishing to these aggressive decks, though. Especially, on the play, they're not going to have a whole lot of way to replenish these resources. It's all about making use of what you end up with.
Right. But Jerry does play with one of the best cards of all time with mulligans, Hazret the Fervent, right? So he could potentially kind of get a hand where he just curves out and plays a Hazret in turn 4 and kind of just washes away that mulligan.
That's a great point. Still, that's just good deck building.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to be heading into this one from the other side of things. We are going to have the result of Jeremy Frye, and we're going to have the result of Ganyan. That matchup also going to be a little bit, if we can jump over to that one, we will, but that also includes another copy of that blue-red deck, and then, of course, it's got the straight-up red deck wins.
Yeah, and that matchup plays out very similarly, too.
And actually, it looks like the update on that one is that actually Gan did take that win 2-0. It continues.
17-0. So Gan is actually potentially going to make history here.
And these players are competing for the chance to crush that.
Right.
That is what this fight is all about for them.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're getting the scry here from Jerry. Going to keep that one on top by the look of it. How intimidating does that have to be? If you win, you get to go up against the player who hasn't lost.
Yeah.
Beaumont Courier comes down.
I mean, I think Jerry's played enough where probably he's not going to be too phased, but still, you're going to know going into the last round that your opponent definitely knows what he's doing.
Absolutely, and it's going to be Minister of Inquiries coming down for Grayson. That's actually a really good way to start activating these Gates to the Afterlife.
Yeah, it's a great way to just fill up your graveyard and also kind of slowing down that Beaumont Courier, too, if Jerry does not have an answer.
True, being a 1-2, I mean, a one-mana 1-2 is pretty solid. It's one of the reasons why they were even looking at Inventor's Apprentice.
Right.
It doesn't die immediately.
Yeah, you just look at all these creatures and you're just like, well, these don't look great, but somehow they still just, your deck, you built your entire deck to just kind of chump block the entire time, so it's really not that bad. And now look, Jerry can't even get in with that Beaumont Courier.
So Grayson's heading in. It is...
Whoa.
I like this. Getting into the red zone with the Minister of Inquiries, following it up with the Walking Ballista. Jerry's just going to go for a cycle of the Canyon Slough.
Yeah, okay. So the reason why Grayson chose to do this is he figures, he can just use this Walking Ballista to get rid of that Beaumont Courier, so might as well get in for, every point of damage that you can. And he might also want that energy for mana, so he might not want to actually just mill himself right away. Wait till he gets a little more information about how his draw fleshes out.
So Jerry ends up losing 2 of these cards with that trigger on the stack from the attack, takes it down, so we do have 2 of the, that second card was added after it was placed in the graveyard. And it is the Champion of Wits. Definitely one of the powerhouses of this deck.
And yeah, Grayson was lacking in the blue mana, so kind of a heads-up play there.
Is that 2 combat celebrants in the graveyard?
That is. That's basically where it belongs until the Godpharaoh's Gift comes onto the battlefield.
I mean, once it's online, it means that you are going to be looking at 3 combat steps once that hits the battlefield. That's just incredible. That kind of inevitability is insane.
Right. And now Jerry just not a lot of action. This is just the opposite of how he wanted this game to start out.
Looks like it is going to be Chandra Torch of Defiance, though. Adding this one, exiling card. It's Pia Nalar, but that's just going to deal 2 damage.
Right.
Remain in exile.
And Jerry could have, of course, used the Chandra to minus and get one of the creatures off the board, but that would leave Chandra at 1 loyalty, and one of the creatures would be able to finish it off. So Jerry figures, look, I'm going to get this Chandra up to 5. It's going to be pretty difficult for you to actually be able to get my Chandra off the board, and then I can untap with access to, potentially up to 6 mana next turn.
We see this last energy used, by the way, to cast this Champion of Wits. Got to find blue mana or bust right now.
Right.
Looks like a Vizier of Many Faces and a 3rd combat celebrant in the graveyard.
And he did find a blue source here, and he's now looking at 5 creatures in graveyard. So 1 away from a potential Gate to the Afterlife.
Those 3 combat celebrants are just going to just wreck this field.
Right. If Grayson just gets a Godpharaoh's Gift on the battlefield and Jerry does not have an Abrade, yeah.
So it is Jerry's
tons of damage.
He does have the Chandra. It is down to 2. He was able to, soak up a bit of that damage. He remains at 18. The Chandra does have a couple of plays. It can add mana if you need to really empty your hand quickly. It also does have that plus ability to take a look at an extra card.
Yeah, and take a look at Grayson's hand. He's got a couple of Fanatical Firebrands along with that Trophy Mage. And that Trophy Mage gives this deck a little more redundancy as well. You can use that Trophy Mage to search up that Gate to the Afterlife. And with the Fanatical Firebrand, he's guaranteed to have 6 creatures in his graveyard.
That's a great point. Looks like for Jerry, we've got a 2-mana play.
Did he cycle another Canyon Slough?
Oh, that is the case. So, yeah, he did take that Slough to the graveyard, trying to find more of these cards that he can just start using. This game plan is, he's got pretty minimal pressure on board.
Yeah, he really needs to kind of find some kind of threat to add to the board to actually protect this Chandra. So if he doesn't have that, I would probably just look at the top card and see if I find something. And there is an Abrade. That Abrade can get one of those creatures off the board. But the problem is, no matter what, Grayson is still going to have 3 power on the battlefield to deal with that Chandra.
Yep, and that does go to the graveyard. That's also creature number 6. So in the theoretical world where you have Gate to the Afterlife and a land in hand, this is going to be where the fun begins.
Right. And now Grayson has that Fanatical Firebrand and, try to figure out how he wants to attack the Chandra. And, okay.
1 damage to Jerry.
And now he's got the Trophy Mage, fetch out that Gate to the Afterlife. And now all he really needs, he's fully set up here. He just needs to find that 5th land, so next turn he can just go ahead and fetch that God Pharaoh's Gift as quickly as possible. And the thing is, he doesn't even necessarily need to get Gate to the Afterlife here. He's already got 6 power on the battlefield. Jerry needs to answer the threats at hand. So Grayson, if he's concerned about a card like a Braid, he can choose to play around it if he wants.
It's true, and once he does get to that 5th mana, it becomes significantly easier to play around a Braid, too, because once you play it, you have that activation immediately.
Does Grayson find a land? I'm going to say no. Oh, another Gate to the Afterlife.
2 cards in hand for Jerry, so this Hazoret is not doing too much yet, but he does have 2 mana open. Could be a trick up his sleeve.
All right, and he's going for the pre-combat here. Oh, and he's going for the Ballista here in the hopes that he finds an untapped land. If he does, he can activate that Gate to the Afterlife. And
was that the 4th combat Celebrant?
I think it might have been a Fanatical Firebrand.
Okay.
Yeah. So he ran out the Walking Ballista to try to find an additional land. It looks like he's continuing to do this to try to, I guess, just lock up the win this turn if he can and just hope that Jerry does not have an Abrade. So does he find land number 5?
Yes. Ether Hub comes down.
And he does. All right. You sculpted your entire game plan around finding that land. So you're just kind of committed at this point to get that God Pharaoh's Gift.
And I don't think that I see an Abrade in Jerry's hand. This could be
all of the Celebrants. There are 3 combat Celebrants in the graveyard right now.
We could be looking at 4 combat.
I'm not even going to run the numbers, but it's a lot. A lot.
4? This is, if you want to talk about having a celebration, let's celebrate making it through this match.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Here
goodness.
We go. Exert.
First one
untap the squad. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Actually, I don't even think he can do that because Jerry's just going to be dead before that happens. But wow.
The 3rd one even untaps the other 2.
Yeah.
Just... Oh, my goodness.
Here we go. So Jerry took a bunch of damage. Jerry's at 7. Comes in. Untap the other one. Exert. Oh.
And this is going to lock it up.
Jerry offering the left-handed handshake.
Oh, my goodness. Grayson, 3 combat Celebrants, moves his way on, and he is going to be going up against the undefeated player, the only thing standing between Yan and history.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That is going to be amazing.
17-0. 17-0, going for the 18-0. But Grayson, even kind of watching him play against one of the best players in the world, just playing to get that win right away. Kind of cycling through his threats, trying to find land number 5 to get that Gate to the Afterlife going. And for somebody who picked up his deck Friday, not bad.
So we're going to get to see him from that deck from Friday going up against history in the making in the finals coming up right after this. We'll see you there.